Meanwhile, a rescued Oyo teacher, Zacchaeus Olatunde's telephone interview, where he revealed that the kidnappers themselves released the Oyo captives and directed them to safety before security personnel eventually escorted them home, went viral over the weekend. He stated that for 46 days, they were permanently blindfolded and did not even know if they were still in Nigeria. I'm sure you watched that, you listened to that phone interview. It was a radio call, and you know, it went viral over the weekend. But we also had our correspondent on ground who actually corroborated the story of the defense headquarters, saying that they did go in to rescue. So I mean, I don't really know where the story lies and how this is all coming at this time.
So there are many things I want to right.
I thought we paid tribute to some soldiers that died in the rescue operation.
You're correct.
So how did those soldiers die?
It was a gun.
If this teacher is now saying that they released them and guided them to where they were going to meet the military personnel from. So where did now the story come from that they had captured their family members and there was discord amongst their camp before they released them? So there are many things, you know, we need to piece together. See, if we can get Olatunji, the Zacchaeus Olatunji teacher on the rise, we would like to ask more questions, honestly, because we need to be able to get to the end of this. While we commend our troops, we just truly want to know what transpired. I mean, when our troops do well, look at the Mongolu case, we're excited. This is what we want to hear. It's sad that students had to lose their life, but we need to also get the full account of the story so we know where we are going. So we also we know the military authorities will not even want to respond to that, but we want to dig more. And probably, maybe what we should also do is, if the other woman, the principal,
yes, we spoke to her as well.
If she's ready, if she's ready to be able to grant long-winded, long-form interviews, so that we really know
Rufai, she spoke at length. She spoke to different media houses, and she was able to corroborate those stories.
Yeah, because I don't know where this small story is coming from.
Right.
And because our troops died now, I mean, and they will arrest me. In fact, those that will be arrested have been charged.
Right.
So there's more that we need to know.
Did you want to quickly touch on the other aspects of the story where Bwala alleged the international dimension, which is not new?
It's not. I was going to say that. I believe at the time he was Chief of Defense Staff, the current Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, had on an international platform stated that there was international complicity, and he said that sometimes when they would arrest some of these criminals, they would find foreign currency on them, and so who were the people that were sponsoring them? And then if you even look at the scale at which they operated, there was international dimensions to this. But we understand the challenges, which, to be honest, everybody can tell you where the underlying causes are. What we're asking for is action. So you cannot explain away responsibility to deal with the issues by continuing to focus on what the challenges are. I think that is where the gap is. So that Obala is saying what we already know, because interviews have been granted in the past where, you know, people who had the authority to speak on this subject had stated it very clearly. So what have they been able to do?
That's the major question. That is the major question. Don't tell us about, oh, you have this. What have you been able to do based on that information? That is what Nigerians want to hear and what we want to see. The students of Mongono, may their souls rest in peace. They were suspected ISWAP terrorists. I mean, like Dano Bwala had said in that interview, those are the international collaborators that infiltrate our nation. I mean, our young girls, really, really, really sad. Their souls rest in peace. Now let's take this story that is setting the legal community on fire. A viral video showing lawyer A.K. Musa delivering a passionate and furious critique of the Nigerian Bar Association's 2026 national elections went viral over the weekend. In the video, Musa called out NBA President Afam Osigwe, directly accusing him of falling short of the expectations of Nigerian lawyers, and questioned whether this was a loyalist election designed to favor certain candidates. Let's take a look.
The election is marred with an unprecedented level of irregularities. Afam Osigwe, you are falling short of the expectation of Nigerian lawyers. Afam Osigwe, you have failed Nigerian lawyers. This election is marred with irregularities. Lawyers cannot vote. How many OTP have you gotten?
So I've gotten 10 personally.
People are getting OTP. The OTP is not being verified. Votes are static. Before you know it, the vote increases automatically. And the support staff that they put the number there for us to call. When Adamu is there, you call him, he will tell you that he's not a staff of NBA, he has no business with NBA. What kind of African magic is this? What election is this? What kind of election is this? Is this a lawyer's election? If lawyer's election can be tampered with in this manner, how much more secular politics in Nigeria? Is there hope for the Nigerian people? What election is this?
Well, Musa's allegations are alarming. Notwithstanding, the NBA election result has since been announced, with Mrs. Badejo Okunsoya emerging as the new NBA president, becoming the second female NBA president. However, the integrity of the process itself remains hotly contested. If Nigeria's lawyers cannot conduct a credible election among themselves, what message does that send about electoral integrity across the nation? Meanwhile, human rights lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, FALANA, is threatening to drag the federal government to court over the handover of 40 luxury 5-bedroom duplexes to judges in Abuja, declaring that the gesture is discriminatory and illegal. FALANA spoke on live television last week. Let's take a look.
Yesterday I was watching the telly. I was very sad when I saw that the federal government was handing over the keys of houses to judges. And I asked myself, under what law are we operating from? Because it's discriminatory and illegal. You must treat equals equal in our country. So you can't take out judges. Judges are entitled to accommodation, by the way. They must live comfortably, they must well secured. But other citizens must be equally provided for. If you don't do it, you can be challenged. And that is going to happen very soon. Because what is good for the goose is good for the gander. If you have a professor who also have to render services to the society, and those professors are not paid well, nobody talks of providing houses for them. Now, they were living in rented quarters. These days, there are not enough quarters for them. So we must also look at that.
All right, FALANA says he's not against judges having comfortable accommodation. He's against singling out one category of public servant, while university professors, civil servants, and other public workers retire after decades of service without comparable welfare. The question FALANA is asking is the same question millions of Nigerians are asking online. If the government can build 40 luxury duplexes for judges, when will it build something for everyone else? Dr. Abati, and I did ask this question when we took that story the other day where, Nyesom Wike had, inaugurated those duplexes. I believe they were about 20 something at that time. 20, yes. So now, correct. Now, Femi FALANA is threatening to sue the federal government over these.
The point by Femi FALANA or ACN is about equity, about equality. That, okay, if you have to provide accommodation for judges who are essentially civil servants, how about other categories of persons working for the civil service, either the federation, at the level of the federation or of the federal government, or these, the states, and that they too deserve accommodation. He is not objecting to the idea of judges being given housing. He says that the judges, yes, they deserve good accommodation so that they can do their job. However, the other side of it is that, the judiciary is under the first line charge. So they have, some degree of independence, autonomy, and the judiciary should be able to provide for its own officials. So Femi FALANA SAN's point is about fairness. It's about equality, and he cited the example of professors who are also providing service to society, even some of them more than governors and judges. So equality before the law is a point that Femi FALANA SAN was making, and I think that's a you know, an unexceptionable point. It's an incontrovertible point. Now, to the issue of the NBA election, okay, it's about institutional integrity. The voting was supposed to start at 12 midnight Saturday, but because of these glitches that were complained about, okay, I don't know at what point that gentleman made his video. There's what they call the on-time password, as the meaning of OTB, which will grant you access to the voting portal. And then, you know, for some period it was showing this site can be reached. So many lawyers have had cause to complain about being disenfranchised, being frustrated, because if you start at 12 midnight trying to gain access to the portal and it keeps saying this site can be reached, of course, you know, you will complain. But by 8 a.m., you know, the people in charge of the portal had been able to correct it. And that was why voting continued till 8 a.m. Sunday morning before the result was eventually released. Nigerians are not new to technical glitches. You know, there were reports also of cyber attack on the NBA portal that caused the problem. But then from 8 a.m. Saturday morning, the voting, I think, went smoothly. What can we say? What we can say is that even without the technical glitches, Unikon, Sola, Badejo, Okusanya, ACN will have won. But that regardless, the thing is, now that she's been announced as president and she has received a certificate of return, one of her first assignments should be the audit of that election process.
Oh, that's a good one.
To make sure that this process, what happened, does not repeat itself with electronic voting. After all, it was the same thing that President Yar'Adua did after he won the election, and it was said there were technical glitches. He in fact came forward and said, okay, we recognize this problem, but we are going to improve upon the integrity of the process. And then, of course, the larger question will be the reform of electoral processes, not just within the NBA, but also in the larger Nigerian community.
I saw you interviewed her yesterday. I was hoping for that one question about these irregularities. I will have used her answer. But go ahead, your thoughts.
So, real quickly, my thoughts are an official statement released by Lateef Omoyemi Akogbe, SAN, candidates in this election, where he pretty much thanked the people, but this was his words, the election was shambolic, it was a shame to the bar. I'm quoting him here, said, as a presidential candidate, he could not vote. The chairman of ENCBNBA personally sent him 5 different links to access the portal. None of them worked. You know, let that settle in. And that if the chairman and the president and the association cannot get access to vote on the system, then how would a bar member be able to do that? Talked about other levels of irregularity, and I think the part he said he's reviewing all his options alongside his team and will communicate comprehensive, fully informed, principled position on the next steps very soon.
It would be good to see those steps.
And he said thanks for your courage and sacrifice. So that's official.
Yes. It's a loser's complaint.
It would be good to see
every
those.
Nigerian that loses an election will complain.
But he has the right to.
He absolutely has the right to complain. But it would be nice.
Let's be fair and balanced, please. Please be fair and balanced. Please be fair and balanced.
Also released
a statement. But you know, congratulations to the woman. The second, she really does deserve it.
Lose and complain.
Yes, we must win the election. But it hurts to lose, so it's important to also.
Let me just say something, Oji. And that is that sometimes I don't want us to take away from her the victory.
Correct, that's my issue.
Because she definitely campaigned. Her campaign for me was very excellent. She was everywhere. She went to the 36 states of the Federation to speak to the lawyers there. Her campaign promises were clear and direct, and it's fantastic to see a woman emerge as winner. So congratulations to her.
Thank you very much for that.
Congratulations.
Thank you for that. But you know, the investigation will continue.
Honorary citizenship on one state.
I know where you lie. Oh, today Ogun State no carry last one. Well, all right. Well, you know what? We have to be fair and balanced. We will follow the conversation. It is important. I mean, these are the people that hold our nation to repute, and so it's important, like you said, for us to go over all of those accusations. And of course, here on Arise News, we will bring you the update. Well, as concerns continue to mount over discrepancies in the 2026 federal budget, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar over the weekend accused the Tinubu administration of gross fiscal recklessness, alleging that over 210 billion naira in duplicated and overlapping allocations were found in the budget. Atiku says the alleged duplications undermine the credibility of government reforms, asking how a government demanding sacrifices from citizens through full subsidy removal, higher taxes and rising tariffs cannot explain how 210 billion naira ended up in duplicated budget provisions, while Atiku is calling on the National Assembly to conduct a forensic review of the 2026 budget and on anti-corruption agencies and civil society to independently scrutinize the allocations. And of course, Ayo, you know that this has garnered a lot of reactions, and I'll take Franklin's tweet on X. It was from one corruption allegation to another. 210 billion naira duplicated budget. This government, they always find new way to disappoint. Accountability is seriously a problem with this Tinubu administration. Chinedu wrote, "This is a deliberate design flaw that turns public funds into private pockets. While Nigerians endure painful reforms, the system duplicates projects to enable waste and patronage. A nation that budgets for duplication cannot budget for development." Well, and this Atiku story is all coming against the backdrop of a bigger question. Can Nigeria realistically hit President Tinubu's $1 trillion economy target? Well, in a new episode of Policy Without Politics, former chairman of Fidelity Bank, Mustapha Chike Obi, and Dr. Ken break down the mathematics of national growth, asking where infrastructure, human capital, and regulatory efficiency must intersect for that target to hold. Let's take a look at this snippet.
It is more likely, yes, that a lottery ticket buyer will buy a house in Ikoyi than is for the Nigerian federal government to achieve a $1 trillion economy in 5 years. It's impossible. And I will take on anybody who wants to bet with me. It is a guarantee, yes, from Mustapha Chike Obi, yes, that we will not have a $1 trillion economy to do it achieve 2030. If China couldn't do it, if America has never been able to do it, in the reconstruction of Europe, where all resources were devoted to growing GDP after the disastrous Second World War, they couldn't do it. It is foolhardy for a Nigeria with no electricity. We don't have infrastructure. We don't have a well-skilled, dedicated workforce. To think that they can do GDP growth without a foundation, that nobody has ever been able to. Yes. So let's look at the facts. We've gone from 2023 to 2026. Our best GDP growth, adjusted, modified, rebased, has been under 4%. And yet, you want us to make policies that require a GDP growth of 25% for 7 years.
Well, Chike Obi broke down the gap between political rhetoric and fiscal reality. A government facing allegations of 210 billion naira in budget duplication while chasing a $1 trillion economy must urgently demonstrate that ambition and discipline can coexist. I'll encourage our viewers to watch, the full episode of Policy Without Politics on YouTube for the full conversation. Very enlightening, and I think these are the sort of conversations that we need in our economy right now to be able to balance what the federal government is saying, in contrast to the reality on ground. I'll just take this one, then you'll tie everything together, Ayo. Meanwhile, reactions are trailing the Supreme Court's landmark ruling, which ordered the final forfeiture of 7 high-valued properties linked to former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele. to the federal government. The ruling restored the original federal high court judgment, which had found the assets to be reasonably suspected proceeds of unlawful activities. The forfeited assets include luxury duplexes and apartments in Lekki and Ikoyi, an industrial complex in Delta State, and $2 million in cash. Can you believe that? $2 million. And also they also found other, landed properties. MFLS still faces a separate fraud trial involving alleged offenses of $4.5 billion. So this is not the end of his legal battles. And last week we talked about Malami's forfeiture. Yes. And one of the ex-users says, federal government, EFCC, please, all of this forfeiture, all of this money that we are seeing being forfeited, where is it going? Please tie everything. It's not funny. It's very annoying. Yes.
Aisha Chimugu, don't forget her own forfeiture too.
Yes. Yes.
So in the space of a few days, Nigeria has been able to recover quite a substantial sum of money and assets based on forfeiture orders from the courts, and the FCC ought to act on this. Well, beyond this is now going to the first conversation around, before the public policy conversation was the budget, discrepancies, overlapping items in the budget as highlighted by Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. And I think that well done to him. This is not just the job of opposition, and I want us to take that out. This is actually meant to be first line, the job of the National Assembly, the Senate especially, because there's a whole committee that's supposed to have a look at the budget and see areas where they can either bring down or flag off and then reinstate. And so for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar to do this, well done to him. Now, what do we get as a response? We had Senator Reuben here earlier on today, and it seemed as if there was the first response is being defensive. Oh, we've done our job. But the actual truth is that what Alhaji Abubakar is saying is that there are 210, we could have saved 210 billion if only we did not put in frivolous items in the budget, or we did not duplicate certain items in the budget. And you can understand where he's coming from, because we are actually at the moment discussing a phantom agency or department that got a whole budget in this, a whole amount allocated to it in the budget, which was missed by oversight functions. And these are the conversations that we have, because when we're talking about the $1 trillion economy, going to that policy without politics conversation with Dr. Ken, it is important to see that if we don't have fiscal discipline, which is what we're calling for, yet we keep asking the people to be patient. Oh, the government is working, hunger is for a moment, we have to do the fuel subsidy. But the people who are responsible are wasting Nigeria's resources, then they have no justification to ask the Nigerian people to be patient or to watch and see how the economic policies will affect them in the long run. So this is where we need a lot of questions asked and accountability. We need questions asked around why certain items exist in the budget and an explanation for the $210 billion that is a gap within that system. Now, going on very finally to the last conversation around the forfeiture, good one on that. But a lot of question around transparency, accountability, that these monies that have now been forfeited, where would they go? Yes. I wish the FCC would have a plan, and I think they've had plans like that in the past, where they would say this amount of money recovered from this person is going to health. This amount of money is going to fix. We're going to continue asking this amount of money. This is what is now relooted loot that was recovered, and then we go back again. Yes, we can't have that. Dr. Abati, we don't have time, please.
No, there's one plus.
Okay, what's the
It's an intelligent point. We don't talk on the surface.
Quickly,
in the case of Abubakar Malami and in the case of Aisha Chimugu, both of them, they still have recourse to higher courts.
Yes, they
can go to Court of Appeal, they can go to Supreme Court. The only matter that has been finally determined is the forfeiture attached to Emefiele. However, the basic point to make here is that public service should be about service.
All right, well said, Dr. Abati. Public service should be about service.